Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My channel simply is Discerning What is True. And I'm reading chapter 13. It's be Psychology and Kabbalah. Today is the fifth day of November 2025. So this again is written by a gentleman who wrote this particular book here, which simply is called Kabbalah. It's the tradition of hidden knowledge. It's been hidden for mankind for over 2,000 years. It's Kabbalah. And the church has kept people in darkness for a long time. It's time for a change, don't you think? Because no one's going to heaven, folks, unless they follow the Kabbalah and understand what is really deeply going on here. So, let's see if we can get back to the reading here. My diatribe here. Astrology is the study of the effects of cosmic influence as sciences, and certainly the most ancient form of psychology. You think, let me add on this. We think that psychology is a modern thing here, folks. Sorry. It's been known for a long time ago. The Egyptians knew about it. Okay, and the groups of people in Mesopotamia knew about it also. They tried to tell people while me and Phil Langdon shared what we call the issue of Mesopotamia. And they wrote it on stones. It was the only way they could actually try to, quote unquote, keep it kept alive. You see. This complete book of knowledge about celestial effects has been built up over several thousand years by empirical observation. The Babylonians formulated the general scheme of interesting levels, or I should say interacting levels, and the Greeks refined the detailing. The Arabs added the more precise dimension of the mundane house system, and Western astrologers have deepened and widened the subject with the aid of the modern scientific method. Today, astrology is a subtle synthesis of mythology, psychology, and technology. Seen Kabbalistically, it is a discipline that relates events in the world of Yezirah, that's Yezirah, to what is happening in the world of Assyria. Looking at it in a more contemporary way, astrology is the study of a system of cosmic dynamics and structures and how it affects the sub/system of the psyche according to the tensions, eases, and blocks and releases occurring at a given moment. Its rationale is that the solar system, with its ever-changing set of planetary relationships, affected by resonance. The delicate infrastructure to events in the greater worlds. This is because each person is a miniature version of the universe and resonates in sympathy, that is sympathy, with cosmic rhythm patterns. A natal horoscope, simply a picture of the celestial situation at the moment of birth when the incarnating psyche gels into the body. The reason why such a chart can be useful is because there is a analogy relationship between the nature of the Sephirah, the planets, and the psyche. Thus, for example, Malkuth and the earth correspond to the body, while the sun and moon relate to the self and Tiferet, and the ego and Yesod. The planets correspond to the various functions and levels of the psychological tree that is based upon the image of Adam Catman. Catman, I should say. The model becomes individualized at the moment of birth as each of the heavenly principles leaves the mark of a particular sign of zodiac upon the first breath. Here it must be said to astronomers that the picture is not of the stellar constellations or actual celestial bodies, but 12 Earth-oriented divisions of the sky, when the luminaries and the planets are related to a particular place and moment. Yes, we do know that, folks. We know that the 12 disciples represent the one of different, what we call the astrological signs. That's true. So the Bible itself is also gleaming what we call the truth. But it cannot be read literally, you see. Okay, there are so many hints in the Bible, but unfortunately, people are reading the Bible literally, and they will never get it. And that's why they are immensely involved in, quote unquote, trying to set up kingdoms that actually do more harm than actually help. That's the truth, folks, for the last 2,000 years. When the luminaries and planets are related to a particular place and moment, it is like the difference between a perspective but impressively paintings of a person in a highly resolved image of a photograph. The former is concerned with depth and emphasis, the latter with a surface accuracy that is, in fact, often a misleading picture. A horoscope reveals to a good astrologer what in a character is likely to predominate. That is, tendencies which could be checked and what needs to be worked upon. A highly skilled practitioner can make certain predictions about a life, like a good diagnosticism can prognosticate the course of a disease. But this must be based on great experience and a profound understanding of human nature, with which many astrologers and indeed because most people by the obvious or go by the rule of established opinion, which is subject to intellectual fashion. That's why people are lost. People are not open-minded to what I would call truth. They're open-minded to whatever's fashionable out there. This is not fashionable, folks. The position of the sun, moon, and planets give each chart and tree a unique loading for only rarely are two people born within 4 minutes of each other at the same place. That's why people are different, you see. Different personalities, different perspectives, you see, different characteristics. The matter in which the configuration is spread out or cluttered can indicate the way a person may be a good or bad all-rounder or obsessional type, such as is found when Sun, Moon, and Mars are conjunct in a particular sign or mundane house. Without being too technical for astrology, is not the focus of our study. A house is that department of the 10th house, which relates to the achievement in the world, would tend the person towards a powerful ambition. Both Napoleon and Hitler had this in their charts. Here it must be said, to quote Sir Thomas Browne, BRWNE, the 17th century physician, quote, "Burden not the back of Aries, Leo, or Taurus with thy faults, nor make Saturn, Mars, or Venus guilty of thy follies. Think not to fasten imperfections on the stars, and so despairingly conceive thyself under a fatality of being evil. Calculate thyself within. Seek not thy cosmic circumstances." Sorry, I said wrong. Might say that while the horoscope and indicators trends, they are no more than tendencies that can be utilized or checked because the factor of available. So what it means is God is always given free will. Man born faith would say, you see, they would say simply, you were born to be, quote unquote, to be a child of God. No, sorry, it doesn't work, folks. Alas, the choice is usually to be unconscious of one's inclinations, especially the bad ones. So a chart has great relevance to most of us. Therefore, let us take an example and see the sephiral and celestial principles involved and their effect upon the psyche that has been incarnated. A horoscope is usually drawn up for the moment of the first independent rep, when the psychological physical bodies fuse to a greater or lesser degree. If they do not lock, then the child dies and the psyche retires to your Zerati world again, as happens in a stillborn. Scattering of forces and structure, not unlike strong snowflakes, you see, that take on certain forms according to their conditions. In fact, I think what I understand, no snowflake is alike. They're always different. It is crystallized into a kind of a personal hologram of the cosmos as it unfolds the grand design. This process can be likened to an arrow shot from a bow under particular conditions of angle, tension, wind, humidity, and aim. Once the arrow has been loosened, it will follow a specific trajectory. In Hebrew, the word het, H-E-T, or sin, means, quote, to miss the mark. And this is related to a person who does not use the faith given to develop for. In other words, a person is given the opportunity to do certain things when they're here. And simply is that someone doesn't use their gifts in a way that actually benefits them. Okay? The church has done the opposite of that. That's the mark. Unlike a inanimate arrow, we can make in-flight adjustments, even though the general passage from birth to death may be fixed in this or that way according to the karma that's set up for the aim. Set up the game, okay? Figured what they call birth chart. When a horoscope is put on the tree, a precise character can be seen. This is because, as noted, the positions of the celestial archetypes give rise to particular combinations that define the balance of the psyche. Here, for example, Sun in Psyche, Sun in Pisces, I should say, a water sign, would make the individual extremely sensitive and introvert. However, the Moon in Virgo, and position of the ego, would make them very practical. The soul triad indicates a certain fixity because of the tension between Mars and Jupiter. The triangles, squares, and other symbols indicate harmonious and disharmonies within the psyche. That's from Halevi, the writer of the books here. If, for example, our subject was born just after dawn with the sun in, say, the sign of Cancer, then empirically evidence would indicate that they might be essentially retiring and preoccupied with domestic matters, whereas someone born 15 minutes earlier would still be interested in family and security, but this would be expressed very outwardly in a drive for better domestic situation in society or the founding of communities in pioneer conditions. A moon in, say, Leo, might add a charismatic or a megalomaniac ego, according to the moon house system, I should say. Whereas a moon in Virgo, which is favorable, relate to the sun, could, if well handled, being a practical ego you sought to, and the self Tiferel, symbolized by the sun. If badly utilized, despite its good aspects, such a person persons might become excessively petty or possessive in their pursuit of security and turn a potentially excellent family situation to one of tyranny. This illustrates that the so-called good and bad horoscopes are not as clear-cut as they might appear. Of course not. Many a person with an apparently difficult chart has mastered it of the stars. Ascendual, I should say. Moon and sun are considered as a bodily form. The ego and the self. Then the planets represent on the tree the various functions of the psyche. Thus, a Mercury at Hod in the sign of Gemini in the third house of communication would indicate a high degree of intelligence and inquisitiveness, while a Venus in the same sign and house would suggest a sensual curiosity that might lead to proximity. According to their positions and mutual relationship for a particular sephira in their psyche. An affiliated Mars or Java, for example, suggests bad judgment, or conversely, it worked upon real discrimination. A well aspect and placed Jupiter or Hesed, Hesed, however, could create laxity in limits so that the person is continually in debt or loves people who always hurt him. This, of course, could be his fate. That is, either to learn not to be too allowing or to clear some karmic backlog. Likewise, a Saturn in Aries in a house of partners could lead to an impetuously and contentious marriage to someone much older, in which some past life problem is worked out in the parent-child relationship until one or both become adults. The position of Uranus or Holcomb factors could be quite critical in a person's life if it is found in the house of possessions. This indicates sudden gains and losses in practical things. If it is in a water sign. The planets Neptune and Pluto, according to Kabbalah, indicates the kind. Hold on a second here. And would indicate the kind of contact the person might have the divine and knowledge of the suit. Which would be to do a faint impression of what can be gained from a birth chart. With a trained eye, much can be gleaned by scanning and focusing, analyzing and synthesizing all the factors. Like an X-ray plate, the paradigm of a horoscope contains many minute details of the situation as well as the general picture. It can indicate talents and lessons of character. The indication to lead this or that kind of existence, and when astrology is intelligently applied, detect the crucial points, crucial periods of growth and crisis. For as the body has to grow into an already existing image, so the psyche has a pattern which follows a particular path as the person moves through the various ages and stages of development. Seen objectively, the birth chart sets out the potential of a person. People do alter the patterns of their lives, but this is quite rare, as few know themselves well enough to modify or develop their trades, or their Astrology is useful because it is a detailed map that contains the kind of information which normally takes years to acquire. Having seen the emergence of the psyche into the material world of the body, let us now look at the parallels as we begin to see the relation and resonance of a psychological and physical organism. No, it's not there. Okay. Figure 21, circumstance. Anyone born in London in 1652 would soon realize that they were in a capital city despite the class, in, class into which they incarnated. Conditioned by London, urban character, their family situation, and the fact that there had just been a civil war and economic depression, they would grow during Cromwell's strict Puritan regime and the libertine epoch of the Merry Monarch, Charles II, who reigned encouraged licentiousness but also progressed in science. All this would have an effect on the individual and collective mind of the righteous guilt and outrageous sensuality. These two poles provided the English attitude to what they call hypocrisy, the 7th, 16th century print. And that's the end for 13, chapter 13 here. So we're going to stop at this point, take a little break. Hope all is okay with you and your world. We'll try to see, we may do another record later in the day. We'll see how that works out.